Good morning, everybody. My name is Lionel Lepine. Unfortunately, I don't have any visuals to show up on a screen for you guys or anything, so you guys are going to have to look at me. So. But basically, I'm here to tell, I guess, a bit of a story in terms of the impacts that this oil sand development is having on our community. And so far, you've heard the technical aspects of what's going on, and I'm glad I don't have to explain the terminology and explain the technical aspects of the amount of tailings ponds out there or anything. But the fact is that our people are dying up in Fort Chipewyan, and I belong to I'm a member of the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation. That's who I am, and I'm Dennis Oslane. So our people, and like back in the day, were nomadic people. So we had this annual loop that we did around. So our traditional territory extends from the southern portion of Fort McMurray, way up into the NWT, to the east of Saskatchewan, back down south. So in other words, the oil sand deposit, which is labeled as the second major deposit in the world, is located right in the heartland of our traditional territory. And right now it's getting torn apart in front of our eyes. And you ever heard talks about the 500 ducks dying last year? Well, in fact, Sinker Canada came up to Fort Chipewyan to give us the exact number, and the exact number wasn't 500, it was actually 1,606 ducks that perished due to these tailings ponds. So it's not just ducks, there's reports of other animals such as, well, there's geese that fly over there, and ducks, and there's other waterfowl that are landing in these tailings ponds on a yearly basis, and these things aren't reported for a reason being that industry companies have a tendency to kind of threaten their employees, have them thinking that if they report something of that magnitude of a bird landing in a tailings pond, there's a possibility that they may be suspended and or fired. So they're kind of told to keep quiet about these type of issues. So this happens on a yearly basis. Last year was just the only time it was actually reported. And then we got numbers like 11 million liters of toxic waste going into our water a day. And that's another fact that our elders knew about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And they knew that our water was getting sick. They knew, the water was changing color. They knew it all before, like 30 years ago, but nobody was listening. It wasn't until there was a doctor by the name of John O'Connor who kind of noticed people were getting sick in our community. He was our local physician for X amount of years. And what he noticed is that there's a rare form of cancer that was being diagnosed in a number of different people. And the ratio of this cancer is supposed to be like 1 in 100,000 or something like that. And our population of our community is only 1,200 people. And we had 5 cases within 2 or 3 years. So obviously there's something going wrong there. So he could only attribute it to one thing. And he pinpointed that it's only can be contributed to the oil sand industry happening upstream from us. Because the amount of water that they take out of our river and what they discharge back into the river is only asking for death. That's all it is. So when we talk about those are just like some of the impacts. There's so many different impacts that are happening out there, and I think one of the major ones, aside from death of our people, is the death of our way of life, our traditional way of life. Our culture is just disappearing right before our eyes. Like, I'm a good example of that because I can't speak. I could only speak a few words in my own language, and that's kind of sad to say. But the reason being, I believe, is not just the oil sand industry, but this whole government system. They're just trying every way possible to take away from us. Because the way I see it is that Canada had came into this, our homeland, and they try to, wipe us off. Their ultimate goal from day one was to eliminate the Indian people of this country, Indigenous people. That was their ultimate goal, and I think it's still their goal today. But it looks like what's happening in our town, in our neck of the woods. It's just obvious that they're out to kill us. It seems like it to me anyway. That's my personal opinion. And those of you who disagree or agree with whatever, but that's my opinion, is that Canada is out to kill us. It seems like it anyway. So what are we going to do about that? I don't really know. Right now we're kind of in a position where we're finally getting heard, throughout the country, throughout the world. And like I said, my elders have been talking about this for years and years, and now the elders are slowly dying. And when they die, they take all their knowledge with them. It's all gone. So right now, I'm trying to get the knowledge as best as I can, because right now, like I said, our whole way of life is slowly just disappearing right before our eyes. on the account of oil sands. And the people in our community, unfortunately, there's a large number of the people that live in our town who will disagree with me as well, because they're blinded by the almighty dollar. That's all they can see in front of them is this big dollar sign. That's all they can see while driving around in their fancy car or they're in their nice house or whatever it may be. That's all they can see. So if they could only see past that dollar sign and see human beings, see us standing there, then they might realize that there's something else at stake here besides, the environment. It's our life. It's our whole way of life. That's what's at stake, and that's what we're trying to defend and fight for. And flying over here yesterday morning, looking at the beauty of this country, this area is just, astounding. And that's also at stake too. So there's if you look at this area and our area, just getting torn apart right in front of our eyes. And, I think it's just time that we just, we have to take some form of action, immediately. It's the only way that I could actually word things, because it's getting pretty sickening, the more people that we bury every year. Last year we had a water conference in Fort Chipewyan. It was called Keepers of the Water 3. And during the conference we brought home an elderly lady who passed away from cancer, and that was my girlfriend's granny. And the only crime she committed was just living traditionally on the land. That's all she did all her life, eating the fish, eating the moose, eating the berries. That's all she did. And in the end, I believe that's what got her sick. So she got cancer. She was diagnosed with cancer in the late 90s. And she beat it the first time, but the second time it came back and ultimately killed her. And she was 93 years old when she passed away. And again, during that conference, on the last day of the conference, these kids were fishing in our lake. And they pulled out a fish that had 2 jaws, it was a deformed fish. And again, our elders, our fishermen, our local fishermen out there were finding fish that were deformed. But it became almost a normal type of thing that they're just tossing this fish back into the river, and they'll find a fish, okay, it's got a bunch of warts, cysts, whatever it may be, back in the river, whatever they do. So now we're trying to encourage these fishermen to preserve these fish, and just to get them tested or whatever to find out why they're coming out with all these cysts. And same with the moose. When people kill moose, they're finding these cysts because moose are known to have cysts naturally, which are only so big, but the ones they're finding are huge. They're inches in diameter. So obviously the signs are there. People are dying. So it's only going to get worse, because right now I believe there's about maybe 6 or 7 active mines right now out there in our traditional territory. And in 20 years from now, there's proposed, I think, another 22 companies with their crosshairs on our traditional land. And aside from oil sands mining, there's another issue that will come up some other time, but it's uranium mining, because we got a lot of uranium in our traditional territory as well. And that's going to be next. And again, there's about another 15 companies with their crosshairs on our traditional territory just to get that uranium so they could kill people, fuel their missiles with uranium. That's the only thing I could see. And same with America's greed, their addiction for oil. They don't care about the people living downstream, but our people, because when a river flows past us, it goes up north into the Mackenzie Valley. Because I'm living on the Athabasca Basin. North of me is the Mackenzie River, Valley Basin. And north of that is the Arctic Ocean. That's where it's all going to ultimately end up. And then in 20 years from now, it's going to be a global issue. It's not going to be just our people. Everybody in this room, everybody's going to be affected. Everybody's children's going to be affected. And that's one thing these industry people don't look at. They don't see 200 years from now. All they see is today. I don't think they even see tomorrow. I don't think they even realize they have kids that are going to be affected by all this. But us as Native people, we look 200 years from now. It's all we look at is 200 years from now. How is it going to be then? And at this rate, there's not going to be nothing in 200 years. And it's sad, but it's it's the truth. That's exactly how it is right now. So our people up in Fort Chipewyan, the company will come in there and they'll brainwash our children. They'll have them believe that the only thing that's going to benefit this community of Fort Chipewyan is us, the oil sands. And our poor little children believe them, because I was one of them myself. I believed that was going to be the best thing for our community, so I went to go work for one of these companies. It only took me 5 months to realize that all I'm doing is just contributing to all this destruction. I could see it happen right in front of my eyes. These shovels were just tearing apart, our Mother Earth right in front of me, dumping it in the back of my truck. And I go and dump it over there, and I'm thinking, there could be my ancestors in the back there, medicine, anything could be back in my truck, and all they're doing is just walking over everything and clearing it all out, and there it goes, So it only took me 5 months to come to that realization. I just quit. You know, when I quit, my supervisor was trying to get me to stay. He offered me a raise, he offered me time off, and I said no. I said, you can't pay me enough money in the world to do this another day, another night. I said, there's no amount of money that you can pay me to do this anymore. You know, I'm gone. So I quit. I went back home to Fort Chip, you know, where I belong. And there's a lot of people that, when they go to work for these companies, because of all the shift schedules, you know, like they work so many days on, so many days off, they're making all this money, you know, so they got so much money, so much time on their hands, and so little to do. So what do? They resort to drugs, the alcohol, the crime. In fact, there's even cases of prostitution in Fort McMurray. So when I see some of my friends, like 2 years down the road, they're skinny, they're withered away, you know, they fell into that life cycle, that addiction, because of all this money that they had with nothing to do with it besides spending it on drugs. So that's one socioeconomic impact, if you want to talk about those kind of impacts. But a lot of our people are literally dying not only by diseases but also by themselves, by these crimes being committed, by these drugs and alcohol that's going around. So it's just only going to escalate if we just allow all these companies and industry people just to come in here and rip up our traditional territory in front of our eyes. I mean, like, we just can't let that happen, period. I mean, like, I don't know what else to say, but that's just, in a nutshell, what's going on in my community, because, like I said, you know, like, I wasn't prepared to come, when I'm invited to go speak anywhere, I don't prepare notes or prepare a slideshow presentation or anything, because that's when I will stumble, and it's hard to speak from the heart when there's visuals behind me and there's a computer in front of me or a piece of paper. It's hard to speak from the heart and get the message across clear. So that's why I'm just kind of, I maybe jumped from topic to topic, I don't know. But and again, sorry that you guys have to stare with me for the last few minutes or whatever. But those are just some of the impacts that are going on in our community. And like I said, the main impact is our loss of our traditional way of life. The loss of our language is already there. And like I said, I'm a perfect example, because there's just a handful of people that still go out on the land and hunt today and come back. Because when we go out and hunt on the land today, whatever fish we catch, whatever bird we kill, or whatever, there's that risk that we're taking when we eat it. When we bring it home and we boil it or whatever, there's a risk that we're taking. Like when I was born, when I was a kid, 10 years old, going out in the bush with my grandpa, even then we were able to drink from the river and from the lake with a cup. That's all we had to bring. Today we got to bring our own water out in the bush just to have clean drinking water to drink. And there's water right in front of us, but we dare not touch it because we know what's in that water. We know already, so we dare not touch it at all. So we have to go further and further inland just to go grab a fish or drink clean drinking water. And it's just, like I said, it's just only going to escalate. And so, like talking about this kind of stuff and the visuals that I've seen on, in this past slideshow here of the oil sand industry, those kind of pictures, all it does to me, it just makes me depressed. And I tell it because it's just depressing, because like right in front of our eyes, all this stuff is happening, and and what are we doing about it besides just bring out the awareness? So like I may come across as a little bit angry, but yeah, I am a little bit frustrated, in terms of what's going on, in our home territory, our homeland. And 2 months ago, I was privileged enough to get to go to Manitoba on a traditional caribou hunt with 9 other hunters. So there's 10 of us doing this caribou hunt in Manitoba. When 30 years ago, we didn't have to go anywhere for caribou. The caribou were right in our backyard. Somewhere along the lines, they migrated and they took off. The birds are starting to migrate in different directions now. The moose are taking off. All the animals are just taking off, because what's the point of hanging around and eating tar sand? I mean, like, that's not what they're gonna do. So like I said, it was a privilege for me to be included on this caribou hunt. And our elders back home in Fort Chipewyan were just waiting for us to come home with caribou, and we came home with 75 caribou for the elders. And it just goes to show that we have to travel that distance to go and do what we do traditionally. When 30 years ago we were doing it in our own backyard. And now it's just a thing of the past. So I believe that these fossil fuel things should be a thing of the past. Why are we still relying on that? Like these countries that are overseas, like Europe and all that, sure they have their solar panel stuff up, and they're called that green energy, whatever. But there's still these European countries that have their crosshairs as well, and they still want that oil anyway, because I know of a lot of companies that are coming from the overseas and they're coming into our territory, and they're gonna start mining there for oil. So if they're advertising green energy, and at the same time, behind closed doors, they got their crosshairs on our traditional territory still anyways. So I don't know when it's all going to end, so I just hope that, I'm glad that you guys, here the Wet'suwet'en people are able to realize that, that there is something going on. I'm glad you guys see both ends of the pipe, where these things are coming from and where it's going to end up, and that's one thing that I didn't realize as the NSOSNAs. I didn't realize, because of all the activity that's going on in our territory, I didn't realize the pipelines that were going out, and it's crossing through other people's territory as well. That's one thing I never really thought about hard until yesterday, when I started hearing that, wow, it's just everybody's affected, just by the pipelines themselves, and one of the facts is that 80% of this oil that's coming out of our territory goes to the States and or China. So, and we're just gonna allow it to happen? I don't think so. So with that, I'm getting pretty hungry. I don't know about you guys, but, so that's pretty much all I have to say for now. But I mean, there is a whole lot more that I do want to say. So if anybody has any question or anything, they can come and see me or whatever afterwards. Or if you have a question right now, by all means, I'll have to the best of my knowledge, I will try to answer your question right now.
I'm assuming that the water supply coming out of the taps in the village is from the Athabasca.
Oh yeah, that's what I totally forgot to mention. The Athabasca River, aside from being a major source of, that's our major river, and we live on a western portion of Lake Athabasca, and our water intake comes directly from the lake, and a channel that comes from the Athabasca River goes right in front of our town of Fort Chipewyan. So our water intake is right there. And just 2 days ago, there was a notice that was released by the municipality of Wood Buffalo to inform the people of Fort Chipewyan to boil their water for at least a minute, and it was mandatory. And at one time, it was just common sense to boil your water, because I have a 20-month-old son, and I have to boil the water for him to drink. It's out of common sense. But now it's mandatory. It was a notice that went out that our water must be boiled, and the advisory notice that went out also stated that even to brush our teeth, it's a no. We can't even brush our own teeth today, right now, with the water that's coming out of our taps, because they found bacteria in there.
I know the Alberta government recently was forced into finally admitting that there were toxic materials in the water.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, since that happened, whether your community might have tried to pressure the federal government to provide an alternate supply of water.
Oh yeah, we're pressuring them as much as we can. I mean, we have two chiefs, and George hopefully will elaborate on that a little bit more this afternoon. But yes, we are pressuring the government. And in fact, my First Nation, the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, took the government to task just a few months ago. So we are taking them to court in terms of infringement on treaty rights. Because that's all we have left. That's all the elders say they have left, is just our treaty rights. So we're given these rights on our own homeland all of a sudden, and so the government of Canada are infringing on their own laws. So we're just going to take them to court, and enough of this. So yeah, so we are putting pressure on as much as possible. And when industry people come to our hometown of Fort Chipewyan, we will put the pressure on them as well. But they'll never send government people up there, not too often. It's very rare that government officials will come up. Oh yeah, you can taste it. You can taste it. Yeah. And the moose meat especially, yeah. Like, not only is there a different taste, but there's also a different color to it. I mean, the color of the moose, is gone to it's just a different color. You can see the color of their blood. The blood is even a different color. And and the berries, everything, it's just slowly starting to change. And these are just small little signs that we're getting, and the more signs that we see, the more that we know, or we have a pretty damn good idea where it's coming from. It's coming from the water, and we know our water is being proven to be contaminated. It contains arsenic, mercury, pH, is all cancer-causing agents, and it's been proven by Western scientists. When our traditional scientists were saying this for so many years, but nobody would believe them, because who wants to believe an Indian? That's the attitude that was given to us. So our elders are finally getting their voice heard now. But like I said, we're still dying up there. So aside from getting our voice heard, something else has to be done. You got a question?
You are right when you mentioned our elders are dying of cancer, this is happening in this area also. And before our time, our ancestors lived over 100 because they were not contaminated with no chemicals in the food they ate out on the territory. But now, like you say, everything is being damaged. Plants, salmon, moose, everything is contaminated. And we are losing our elders. It's happening everywhere, not only your area. And looking at this as everything you said, we're going through the same thing here. And nobody stand up and stop anything. They're waiting until our grandchildren are going to live on a territory, and they're going to live on the same food we're living on. What are they going to live on? And I'm looking at this as the government are in control, like they sent our parents away to Chipewyan Residential School without their say. They were hauled off to the residential school, and none of them got counseling while after they were released. There's no counseling service at the time. They're age 15 when they're released from Chipewyan, and they were told you're of age now, you can go home. Nothing, just their little bag of clothing, and they walked home to their relatives. Some of them had no parents, all gone by disease. Some of their children were buried, and parents had no knowledge what these children died of. Okay, government's in control that time. They're also in control now. And nothing is being done to stop them. The way you're talking, we're living the same thing here. I'd like somebody to say something about it. A lot of our people, I'm hoping someone stop this, because it goes any further, there's going to be nothing left for us. There's moose count is low, salmon count is very low down the canyon. Nothing is left for the community. Got to struggle to get our food for the winter. It's been like that for the last few years. I know a lot about what you're talking about, because I'm in that generation where my dad spoke to me about what he lived through. And you're going through the same thing what we're going through. Just by listening to you, I can picture our own people. What you're talking about is so true. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. And you just made me want to bring up one more point about the residential school. Like last year we heard an apology from Canada, and that's the only thing they could do is just apologize. And I see them, if this doesn't stop, they're going to be apologizing for the death of a whole race of people. This is like cultural genocide happening right in front of us right now. So that's what I foresee in the future if we don't do something now. It's an apology about the death of a whole race of people, which is us, the indigenous people of this land.